Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are returning once again to our series on how to kill superheroes. And today's installment focuses on one of the most powerful entities in the DC universe, the Spectre. So the Spectre was created by Jerry Siegel and Bernard Bailey and debuted in More Fun Comics number 52 in 1940. So he's been around for a long time, since the golden age of comics. Now, the first explanation of the Spectre's origin centers around a policeman named Jim Corrigan, who is murdered while on his way to an engagement party. Now, the first explanation of the Spectre's origin centers around a policeman named Jim Corrigan, who's murdered while on his way to an engagement party, stuffed into a barrel filled with cement and thrown into a river. Now, when Corrigan's soul gets to heaven, he refuses to pass over into the afterlife, so the Archangel Michael attaches his soul to a spirit of vengeance and sends him back to Earth to dispense divine judgment to those who committed acts of evil for 60 years. Now, back on Earth, Jim Corrigan returns to the police force and takes up a career as a crime-fighting superhero called the Spectre. And as the character's popularity waned, the Spectre was turned into a background character whose purpose was to provide comic relief before completely disappearing from DC Comics for about 20 years. Now, although the character would be revived and show up periodically throughout the Silver and Bronze Ages, it wasn't until the 1990s under the writing of John Ostrander that the character would really find a renewed popularity. Ostrander sought to reinvigorate the character and work to tweak his origin and add to the mythos surrounding the character when he revealed that after Corrigan was murdered in the 1940s, he was not actually resurrected, but in fact remained dead, although he walked the earth thinking he was still alive after being bonded to the spirit of divine vengeance. Ostrander also revealed that the source of the Spectre's powers is actually God himself, and that the Spectre as an entity had existed since the creation of man and was actually the embodiment of God's wrath. Now, over time, the Spectre had come to reject the idea of mercy, and so it was bonded to a series of human hosts and hoped that their humanity would temper its wrath, and Corrigan was merely the latest in that line of hosts. We also learned that the Spectre was previously an angel named Astar and had sided with Lucifer during his rebellion, but after repenting for his betrayal, received the role of being God's wrath as a punishment. And so what makes killing the Spectre such a difficult endeavor? Well, as I stated earlier, the Spectre is one of the most powerful entities in the DC universe. He's omniscient and nearly omnipotent, immortal, capable of matter and reality manipulation, time travel, and telekinesis. And so there isn't much that's outside of the Spectre's ability to achieve. He's proficient in magic and is able to turn humans into trees and pillars of salt, and is said to be a far more apt sorcerer than Dr. Fate, who's thought to be one of the most powerful proficient magic wielders in DC. He can alter his own size to massive proportions, at one point becoming so large that the distance between his eyes measured 23 light years. His energy manipulation powers are so vast that he was able to create a supernova in the palm of his hand. The Spectre's ability to manipulate reality has allowed him to neutralize the effects of Darkseid's Omega beams and was able to forge a nexus that linked all realities. He was able to break through the source wall, a feat that was thought to be impossible, and his battle with the Anti-Monitor during Crisis on Infinite Earths produced enough energy to destroy the entire DC multiverse and created a new status quo in the form of an entirely new universe referred to as New Universe. And so the question we have to answer is how to kill a being of such immense power. Well, luckily for us, despite me saying that he is immortal earlier, the Spectre can and has been killed before. He is immortal in the sense that he will never die of natural causes or old age, but there are actually a couple of ways that he can be killed. The first is by a being that's able to wield magic to a sufficient degree. While this seems simple, we need to keep in mind that the amount of magical power that would be needed to destroy the Spectre in its entirety is incredibly hard to achieve. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Fate is considered one of the most adept magical sorcerers in the DC universe, and he was unable to muster enough magic to defeat the Spectre. In fact, the Mesopotamian deity that is the source of Dr. Fate's magic, also known as Nabu, was actually killed by the Spectre, which prompted the Presence, the supreme deity of the DC universe, punish the Spectre in turn. Now, while it may seem extremely difficult to find a source of magic strong enough, it's not impossible. The Spectre is nearly omnipotent, but not totally omnipotent, meaning that there are limitations to its power. He can be weakened by expending energy, and in a weakened state, he becomes more vulnerable to magical attacks. In fact, he was killed by Eclipso, the entity that was the embodiment of God's wrath prior to the Spectre taking over that role. Now, how this came about was that Eclipso brainwashed several members of the Justice League and caused them to attack the Spectre. With the Spectre worn down, Eclipso was able to slice him in two with his mystical sword and absorb his essence. Unfortunately, it's going to be difficult to wield as much magic as Eclipso, who, despite not being one of the most well-known villains in DC Comics, is definitely among the most powerful. However, I do do think that this offers us a clue into a way to kill the Spectre. Firstly, we're going to need to mount an offensive of beings with a sufficient enough power level to require him to expend a great deal of energy fighting them. At that point, we capitalize on the Spectre's weakened state and vulnerability to magic by using an artifact of divine or mystical power to deliver the killing blow. One such artifact that comes to mind is the Spear of Destiny, the weapon used to pierce the side of Jesus Christ at his crucifixion. Now, the funny thing about this is that the Spear of Destiny does exist within the DC continuity and has been used against the Spectre with debilitating effects. One of the other crazy things is that the spear actually came into possession of the American President Bill Clinton, who gave it to Superman to slay the Spectre, who was raging out of control at this point, and it was thought that the Spear of Destiny was the only weapon in existence capable of taking the Spectre out. And so as it turns out, the spear contained a corrupting influence placed in it, and it threatened to corrupt Superman before he rejected it. And so the Spectre then encased the spear in a boulder and sent it into space. Luckily for us, the spear has since been retrieved from space and was later purified by the Question. So if we can come into possession of the spear, we don't have to worry about being corrupted. And I really think that using the spear is our only reasonable chance for success, short of having the Presence himself battle the Spectre, as he's able to exercise absolute control over him, since the Spectre is effectively an extension of the Presence. And so that's how I think that we would do it. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. I'm really curious to see what ideas you guys come up with. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.